Alrighty guys, so I've got a video here today, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to build your first, or maybe it's not your first, but whatever time it is, you can build a chuck glider. It's really easy and it only costs like $1. You might have to buy a hot glue gun and the box cutter, but you might have like an X-Acto knife, or I've even seen some of my friends use scissors to cut the foam board. So whatever works best for you. Again, if you're younger, get your parents' permission first before you use a box cutter or maybe even a hot glue gun, because they are dangerous. But the only supply you'll need that is probably not something you necessarily have around your house. You might even have it around your house, depending on what you do. But it's just one sheet of foam board. That's all you need. So this cost me $1 at the dollar store, and I'm just gonna do one sheet of foam board. It's not gonna be a big chuck glider, but it's gonna work, and it'll be kind of a cool one just to throw around indoors. Oh, again, this only cost me $1 at the dollar store. Even my grandparents, who live out in the middle of nowhere, they even have a dollar store, so I'm sure you can find this somewhere, local Walmart, something like that. I'm sure you can find these around. Maybe even cardboard work. Let me know in the comments if you guys try that. And I'm going to show you guys how to build this thing. So what you guys are going to need is you're going to need a box cutter and a hot glue gun. Those are pretty easy to get. Again, local Walmart or something like that should have it. And we got this one at a Harbor Freight, as well as this box cutter. So they were pretty cheap. And just get a bunch of hot glue sticks too, depending on how many you want to make. Make sure you plug in the hot glue gun too. Another thing you'll want is a Sharpie. Again, dollar store. You can pick them up. I'm sure you've already got something laying around your house too. Pencil, pen, whatever works. Just something to sketch with. And a ruler. Mine's broken, but it works just the same. Just kind of a straight edge and a bit of a measuring tool just to measure out some things so it's not lopsided. Alrighty. So, aside from the tools, I want you to keep in mind a couple of things. Alright, so next thing I want to talk about is the design of the aircraft. This flies really well, at least for my experimentation. It flies really good. I love it so much. It's the reason I wanted to make this video. This one, however, not so much. As you can see, this one's got a canard design. There's nothing wrong with canards from the research I did. However, I can't exactly prove that right or wrong. So, there's that. So if you want to experiment with that, totally cool to do that. But just remember, this worked well. It's conventional aircraft design type of thing. And part of the reason this one was so unstable, from the research at least, is due to the fact that this is a diamond wing, or I think that's what it's called. I'll edit in a different word if it's the wrong one. But it's an unstable wing. Very unstable. It does not fly well at low speeds. It flies well at high speeds. And obviously with a chuck glider, we can't go high speeds. Plus, then it becomes unstable still too, because you have so much speed, and just a little bit of mistuning can cause an up or down pitch, causing this thing not to be the best of planes. So, that said, this is the best design that I've come across so far. Again, it's open for modification. Like, I had wingtips on here, although they were falling off, so I just pulled those off. And you can see large canopy just for added weight. I've got some thick underbelly area, so that you can hold it. So, now that we've got the design figured out, let's get to building. Alrighty, so, first things first, gotta figure out what design shape we're gonna do. Again, I'm gonna stick with this same basic plane. Right over here, it's a perfect little plane. I haven't had any issues with it. So we're gonna do this. Alrighty, so first thing first, we're gonna design the nose. That's at least how I started. We're gonna kind of define the size of this plane. So if you look over on this one right here, the fuselage, it is about 10 inches. So 10 inches, and it's about 11 inches on the wingspan. So that's about the same design I'm going to do, about a 1 by 1 essentially. So that's how it's going to look, and I will get to drawing that. You guys will see this sped up version of this. Oh, I'm going to talk about width real quick. Width is also kind of important. It depends on what you're going to be doing. This one right here is 1 inch. It's just so that it doesn't get too wide. That looks kind of weird and funny, but if it's like a larger plane, it would look better if it's much wider. So I'm gonna stick to 1 inches here. So you guys will see that in a minute. Alright, so you guys can see I have these 2 lines drawn. It's pretty easy to do. However, now that I've got these 2 lines drawn, I'm going to draw out the nose. I'm going to shape the nose how I want it. And then once that's done, I'll start drawing the plane. Okay, so the way I draw noses is I find the center point of my fuselage. And then I put a point there, I draw it down to about here, that's about 3 inches. You can go longer or shorter, it doesn't matter. Depending on your fuselage size, that can also vary, so keep that in mind. And again, a longer nose means you're treating the air better. If you treat the air nice, it will treat you nice. So, that kept in mind. We're going to continue drawing the fuselage, and then we'll figure out where the wings should go. So I'm going to real quickly draw the elevators. The elevators are just at the back of the plane. It's pretty easy to draw those. They're like my little mini wings, essentially. Except they're actually used for downforce. If you know that. To pull up the nose. Because as you can see with the nose, it might try to dip down. So this is actually trying to push the plane down so that when it's bouncing on the CG, you get a teeter-totter effect, so it's a self-stabilizing loop, and it flies, hopefully. So the elevators are quite large, so that means I'm going to make my wings pretty large too, I think, just to keep things a little bit more proportional. And I might trim these down later on. As you can see here, these elevators are not at the back, exactly, so they're a little bit further forward, but they work pretty good, I'd say, since it's proof that the plane flies. So we're going to stick with those elevators. Those are pretty large. I might shorten them down. I'll let you guys know if I do that later, and we'll continue on. I just kind of drew a line, not knowing the exact dimensions. This line I think needs to continue out a little bit longer, just to make things a little bit more proportional. But this is just a line to show the back of the wing. It's actually not going to be that big or that small. It's there to help me guide and figure out where I want to place the wings, and it'll keep things straight, and it will make sure that I don't mess up and make things look like a really weird place. don't remember the name of the plane, but it has a sideways wing, so I'll show you that picture now. Alrighty, so now that I've got the wings drawn, those should work pretty good, I think. They're pretty long, pretty narrow, which means I'm going to get an efficient plane. High aspect ratio, I think is what the word is. Basically, it's where you have a low chord and a high length for the wing, so you have a large wingspan, but not a long chord. Kind of the same thing that Boeing's trying to do to make a really efficient airliner. Boeing and NASA, I believe, are doing that. But first, let's talk about how does a wing work. Alright, so I've got a little demonstration here. And basically the way a wing works. See how this is curved on top? There's a reason for that. It's not just a straight and level wing. Now, with these truck gliders, you can see I didn't do that. It's okay, because this is a little bit smaller. It's not going to affect it as much. However, with a normal airplane, or even just an RC one, anything larger, you're going to want to have some camber to your wing. And basically, it looks like a teardrop in a way. So, the air, it goes over the wing, and there's also air that goes under the wing. So, as the air has to get around this, it has to accelerate in order to be at the same spot as the air traveling underneath here. So, then, that speed increases, causing a low pressure zone, because there's a lot more spread out molecules than underneath here. So, when you have a low pressure, which means basically it's like a garden hose versus a fire hose, like for a fighter. And it will push this wing up because the force from the firefighter hose is much greater than the garden hose. So that's a oversimplified explanation. I'm sure you can find a ton of other things on that. But this is the general idea of how a wing works. This is how I learned it. And it's just kind of common knowledge in the aviation industry. So, there you guys go. That's an oversimplified way of putting it. If you guys want me to create a video more on that, maybe you guys can post down in the comments, say you want that. But that's the general overview. And now let's get back to the building. Okay, so I'm going to cut this shape out because I like this shape. It looks good. It should be pliable. And now that you guys know how a wing works, now you understand why we have wings instead of just short, skinny wings. Because you need a lot of speed in order to do that. So, let's cut this out. Oh yeah, don't cut towards yourself, although sometimes you need to make an exception. I do that a lot, like with these types of things. But general shop safety, if you are able to not cut towards yourself, do not cut towards yourself. Something I've learned, and just in general, try to cut away from yourself. Alright, so now I'm going to pop this thing out. It's going to be a little bit difficult. Try not to bend the foam board, because that will mess up your plane a little bit. It'll create a weak area. So it's better to just try and not to. If you notice that there's any paper on this side that's not cut, you're going to want to try and cut that. And then make sure you pop it out nice and easy so that it does not break up, because that would really suck. Alright, so now that we have this cut out, it's not ready to fly yet. Don't try. It's not going to fly. Not yet. because we don't have a rudder, and we also don't have the center of gravity balanced or anything like that. So we're going to want to do that next.
So this is the part where it really becomes important because now we're building in 3D, not 2D. So what I've got here is 2 rudders I cut out a while ago. So if you cut out rudders,
it's kind of the same thing as an elevator, just a little bit more stubby type of thing. Smaller rudders would give you a little bit less stability, however, would give you higher efficiency, just depending on how you cut it out.
So something I'm going to tell you guys about real quickly, involving the rudders and the elevators, it's that you do not have to have them onto the fuselage. You can actually have them up like this. Now this plane doesn't fly great. I do not know why. I think it's a part of the center of gravity issue. It's not the best plane I've ever built. This one should be a much better plane. However, do keep that in mind. You do not have to follow everything I do exactly, because I've built different variations and they all kind of seem to fly differently. So again, this one, it wasn't the best, although that was probably my engineering, because this I think I built a couple of years ago maybe. It's an older plane. It doesn't fly incredibly great, mainly just because of my crappy engineering when I did this. So it should work better for you. I hope it does. But again, there's different variations, and you can also see this one, instead of a fuselage like that, it's like this, and it seemed to have held up worse. So there you go. That's my tips for that, and I will see if this thing flies. No, not well. Okay, so now that these rudders are mostly glued in place, we can continue on with building the cockpit. Because what's an airplane without a cockpit, right? That's called a drone. No, we actually need the cockpit for a lot of reasons, actually. Well, not a lot of reasons. However, it's definitely better for the center of gravity. Because obviously you have so much tail weight, because you have so much more extending up the back, and you also have your elevators, your rudders, all sorts of stuff, right? So you're going to need some weight up here to counter that, because the wing, it's like a teeter-totter. If you have too much in the back, it's going to fly like this. It's not going to be a good plane. Tail-heavy planes fly once. Gosh darn it. Okay, as I was saying before the light turned off on me, the tail-heavy planes fly once, unless you're a good pilot. Maybe then you can recover it. It depends. A nose-heavy plane doesn't fly good, but it flies more than once, right? Another example of this would be with my grandpa's piece of cake. It's an older plane. I can put a picture. It's an old plane. It's got a lot of epoxy on it. That's the word I was looking for. It's got a lot of epoxy, and it's all in the tail section because that section constantly broke. So it's a very tail-heavy plane, and when I was trying to fly it, it was a very heavy plane because we had to put so much weight up in the nose, and it still had tail-heavy problems. So that's something to watch out for, and I will show you guys how to fix that later. So now we got the rudders attached, let's start doing the canopy. That's all I'm going to use, or use less. But if it doesn't matter too much, as long as you have CD right camera later, and what these installed. So I've got a little bit of excess here. I'm just going to take this scrap piece of foam and wipe it, because I do not want to touch this stuff. I've gotten so many blisters from it. Don't touch it. I know it's tempting. Don't touch it. Right, so while that's drying, we can start cutting out the underbelly, or just a piece to grip onto, because it's not fun throwing a piece of paper now, is it? So, That's what we're gonna do because this is all smooth underneath here. Nothing to grip. As you can see on my plane that I had a lot of success with, there is something underneath the plane. Sorry guys, lights shut off on me again. That won't happen again, hopefully. But here's the plane, underbelly. You get the point. Grip plane, grip thing on the plane. Now I kind of want this to go from the wing to about here because I want it to go all the way extending beyond the wing for CG purposes. I've found that throwing a plane at different angles, all that stuff, changes the way the plane flies, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so I went above the wing by 1 inch, so you guys can do the same. That way, I'm just about starting to hit the nose, so that the nose can stay thin. However, underneath here it'll be a little bit thicker for you to grab. It's less aerodynamic, but hey, it'll give you a spot to grip. Okay, so I'm going to measure this thing out real quick. I'm going to find out how long it is. It's approximately 5 inches. So, we're going to cut out a rectangle, it's 5 inches. We're going to give it a tip nose, so kind of like a triangle shape, just to make things a little bit more aerodynamic, because... So I made this about 1 inch thick, because that would allow me to have about 1/4 of an inch on each side, since this is 1.5 inches. So we'll do that. That way it's pretty wide and thick to grab. It'll be a nice strong support piece as well. So I'm also going to cut out a second one that's about 1 inch shorter. That way we can get an even larger piece. It's going to be even stronger. So that way you'll have a bit more to grab as well as more strength. So this is all drawn out. Again, just going to cut it real quick. That way we can stick it on the bottom. And we'll have a finished truck glider. Of course, we've got to tune in the CG and everything. But other than that, yeah. Okay, so I'm about gonna center this onto this piece. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be relatively centered. You can eyeball it, it'll be alright. We're not designing the F-22. No matter how much I wish I was, we're not. So it's not going to be affected by parasitic drag or anything just slightly off. It's not going to be a big deal. But what we're going to do is we're just going to glue this onto that, and we'll have a fuselage belly thingy. Okay, it's glued together, looks pretty good. Nice little solid piece. It's decently strong. Not the strongest thing. Again, foam board, not strong enough. Sometimes, but you know, again, we're not designing an F-22 and F-15, so we should be fine. And then I'm going to just glue this, that, in between those dots, and just relatively centered again. Doesn't have to be perfect, because I can tell you mine's not going to be. Alright, so we'll just let that dry. That should be done here in like maybe a minute or so. And then we'll test it, see how the CG is. And then we can get to just flying this thing around. Alright, here's the plane. It's all finished. So we just gotta tune in CG. and everything like that, and then we should be good to go. So I'm gonna throw it, see how it flies, so I can find the CG, see if this thing is flying wonky. If it is, then I will show you guys how to adjust the CG, and I can show you on a different plane too how I adjust it and whatnot. Okay, so not a bad first flight. It's a little bit lighter than it should be, because as you can see, it kind of fell out of the air there. You guys probably actually might have not seen that. However, from what I saw, it fell out of the air. So I'm gonna examine it again, and I'm gonna see what the heck it's doing. Once I do that, then I will get back to you guys. Oh, that was perfect! Wow! Yes! Okay, so that second flight worked much better. I do not know why, although I think it's just due to the way I threw it. Again, it can also be due to the way you're throwing it. However, the way you would adjust the CG is either the more expensive route, I think, throwing a bunch of hot glue onto the nose or the tail. Not the preferred method, at least in my opinion, because if you use pennies or coins, it's going to be easily removable, and you're not going to be using a lot of hot glue, which costs you a lot more money than a few pennies, right? Pretty cool, I think. And again, if this is your first thing that you've ever built, or just track glider, or any sort of aerial vehicle that you have built by yourself, and